Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to tackle a huge topic, blockchain. But let's forget about all the crypto hype and the confusing jargon for a minute. Instead, we're going to focus on the one single big idea that started it all. This quest to build real, verifiable trust in our digital world. So let's dive right in.
It really all boils down to this one simple but massive question. In a world where you can copy and paste literally anything, how do you prove something is the real deal? How do you send money, or sign a contract, or even just prove who you are online with someone you've never met and know for sure you're not getting scammed? That, right there, that's the core problem we're going to explore.
So how do we do it right now? Well, our solution is to rely on middlemen. We trust banks to handle our money, we trust social media companies to manage our identities, and we trust governments to keep all the important records. They basically act as the central authority, that trusted third party that sits in the middle and verifies everything for us. But what's the catch? Well, the thing is, when we put all of our trust in these central hubs, we create these huge vulnerabilities. I mean, think about it. If they get hacked, or they make a mistake, or heaven forbid, they go out of business, our data and our assets are at risk. It puts a ton of power and control in the hands of just a few. And this whole problem? It became crystal clear during the 2008 financial crisis. This quote you see here was actually embedded in the very first block of the Bitcoin blockchain. It's a direct message. It's basically saying that blockchain was born from a desire for a whole new system, one that didn't have to rely on the same institutions that had just failed so spectacularly.
So, what's the alternative? And that, my friends, is where blockchain enters the picture. You can think of it as a totally new kind of rulebook for the internet. One that lets us create and verify truths together, as a group, without needing a single person or company calling all the shots.
Okay, so what is it really? At its core, a blockchain is just a special kind of database, which we often call a ledger. The magic, though, is in two key properties. First, it's distributed, which means identical copies are held by lots and lots of people. And second, it's immutable, which is just a fancy way of saying it's practically impossible to change anything once it's been written down.
So how does it actually pull this off? Well, it's not one single new invention, but actually a really clever combination of three existing ideas. You've got the blocks that hold the data, the chain that links them all together securely, and a system for mass agreement, or consensus, that gets everyone on the same page.
All right, first up, the blocks. The easiest way to think about these is as the individual pages in our digital record book. Each block is basically just a container that holds a bunch of new transactions or data, and it gets stamped with the exact time it was created. Simple enough, right? Now, this is where the security gets really clever. These pages aren't just sitting in a loose pile. No, each new block gets stamped with a unique, unbreakable digital fingerprint. It's called a hash of the block that came right before it. This creates a secure, interlocking chain, connecting every single block all the way back to the very first one. And this is what makes the whole thing so incredibly secure. If some hacker tried to go back and change a transaction in an old block, that block's unique fingerprint would totally change, and that would instantly break the link to the next block and then the next, causing this kind of avalanche effect that invalidates the entire rest of the chain. Any tampering would be obvious to the whole network in a split second.
Okay, but that brings up the million-dollar question, right? If there's no boss, who gets to add the next page to the book? This is our final pillar, consensus. It's simply a set of rules that lets this huge, global, decentralized network of computers agree on a single, shared version of history.
So how in the world does a global network of computers actually agree on anything? This consensus mechanism is really the engine that makes the whole system trustworthy. And while there are a few different ways to do it, we're going to look at the two big ones that power pretty much every blockchain out there today.
Yeah, the big challenge here is stopping cheaters. I mean, what's to stop someone from just spinning up a million fake computers online to try and take over the network? So you can't just do one computer, one vote. Instead, influence, or voting power, has to be tied to a scarce, real-world resource. And this leads us to the two main approaches, proof of work and proof of stake.
So, with proof of work, which is what Bitcoin uses, the scarce resource is raw computing power. We're talking energy. Miners compete by burning electricity to solve a complex math puzzle, and the winner gets to add the next block. But with proof of stake, used by networks like Ethereum, the resource is financial capital. Validators lock up, or stake, the network's own tokens, and the more you stake, the better your chance of being chosen to create the next block.
Now, the huge difference between these two is energy consumption. Because proof of work requires this constant, massive amount of electricity just to keep the network secure,
it has a pretty big environmental impact. By swapping out energy for capital, proof-of-stake networks can get a similar level of security while being over 99% more energy efficient. That's a massive difference.
But here's the key takeaway, the really important part. Whether you're burning electricity or locking up capital, both systems solve this classic computer science puzzle about how to get a group to agree when you can't trust everyone. It's called the Byzantine generals problem. They basically create a system with powerful economic incentives where it's just way more profitable for you to be honest and play by the rules than it is to try and attack the network.
Okay, so we've got this super secure, decentralized way to keep records. Awesome. But what's it actually for besides all the cryptocurrency stuff we hear about? Let's push past the hype and look at some real-world examples where this technology is already making a difference.
Well, the uses are all over the map, and they're pretty fascinating. For supply chains, it can create a perfect, unchangeable record to track goods from the factory all the way to the store shelf. In healthcare, it could finally give patients full control over their own medical records. It's even being used to create new kinds of online organizations called DAOs, and a whole new financial system that can work without traditional banks.
And look, this isn't just some far-off idea. Take the MediLedger network, for example. It's used by huge pharmaceutical companies, and it runs on a blockchain. It creates this shared, tamper-proof record for prescription drugs, which helps fight counterfeiting and make sure the medicine you get is authentic and safe. It's happening right now.
Now, we have to remember, this technology is still super young. If you think about the internet in the 90s being in its dial-up phase, well, that's kind of where blockchain is today. So what does the future broadband era look like? Right now, the big focus is on making it faster, cheaper, and a whole lot easier for everyday people to use.
And one of the biggest ideas shaping that future is something called the modular blockchain thesis. The easiest way to think about it is like building a PC. Instead of one single part trying to do everything, you have specialized components, right? A CPU for processing, RAM for memory, a hard drive for storage. The idea is that blockchains will evolve the same way, with a whole stack of specialized layers for different jobs, like security, transactions, and data. This specialization is what could finally allow the technology to scale to billions of users.
And that really brings us full circle, back to that final, really powerful idea. This whole explainer has been about trust. So I'll leave you with this question. What if we could build a digital world where trust isn't just something you have to hope for or place in a company, but something that was verifiable and just built right into the code of the systems we use every single day? That's the fundamental promise that this technology is trying to deliver on. Hey, if you enjoyed this and want to keep up with more simple and useful tech insights just like it, be sure to subscribe to Refreshing Tech. Thanks so much for watching.